Okay, this project's right up there with things I really don't want to be doing. First, I got it up on some ramps. I just built these. These are really expensive because I had to buy a nice miter chop saw. I could have probably did it by hand, but let's not. That diff has to go into here. And while we're in there, this truck has multiple oil pressure issues and other service items that should be done at 260,000 miles. Towing that tractor home from the dealer when I bought it, truck overheated like a bastard. Hauling the parts truck where that rear came out of, it overheated. So we have the bigger rad from a new truck, an electric fan, the electric fan kit to wire that in, and then I have HP tuners. I'm going to go into the computer, get that to work. But while we're into the motor, I'm going to reseal everything. So for the oil pressure issues, well, first we got a block off plate for the evap. We have a block off plate for the oil cooler, the factory oil cooler. We don't need that anymore. It doesn't make sense to have hot stuff going into a hot thing that cools more hot things, and then the transmission goes in there and that's another hot thing. Nothing's getting cool. So we have some coolant, we got some oil over there. We have a new oil pump. We have the little guy that keeps the pickup tube in there with 2 bolts instead of just the one that's in their factory. That could be part of my oil pressure issue. When the pickup tube moves, this O-ring could slide out of there and then you lose oil pressure. We have a new timing chain because that's oil cooler gasket. We're gonna go behind the cam gear and replace this plate. That seal goes bad and you also lose oil pressure. So we have water pump gaskets, front cover gaskets, oil pan gasket. That's also leaking. While I have the diff out, it's a great time to have the oil pan resealed. I don't have a dipstick for a couple years now, so I have to, it broke right here. So I have to drive this piece out from the bottom inside the oil pan out the block. So then I should have a dipstick again. I bought a cheap Chinese intake because the factory one is always in the way when you're trying to service the belts. But I don't trust the filter that comes with it, so I went to Advanced and got me a Spectra filter. I believe there's more stuff. I just don't know what else I planned on doing. So up top, I'm gonna pull off this shroud, the intake, and then I'm going to go underneath it in this greasy mess. Pull this skid plate off. There's another skid plate that's supposed to go here. I think it's over there. It should have been there. I don't know why it's not. This diff has to come out. There is this cross member, 2 bolts there, 2 bolts here, 1 bolt up here. That's a real pain in the butt to get to, and then this bracket here. But the diff won't just come out of the way. The steering linkage is in the way, which is fun. So I'm probably gonna have to disconnect it from the steering box here and the idler over here, and probably this stabilizer, shove it forward, hopefully get that out of there, and then work on dropping the pan and pulling off the balancer in the front of the motor. Yay. Okay, so I have this tore out. I'm gonna pressure wash that at the house. Can't do that here. That's disgusting. So the bottom's all stripped out, radiator's out, front cover. Found a couple issues that I want to change. I'm just gonna get a new water pump, some other bits. I'm gonna get a new bracket and idler because the threads on the idler were a little strippy when I took it apart. I don't know why. It's new. But then I'm gonna tear into here when I get back. Just see this thing. Everything's been leaking for so long. All the bearings are terrible. Everything's got slop in it if you grab the stub shaft. But this has been leaking for so long. It's out of fluid. That one you can tell is in much nicer condition. Slightly lower miles. about 50,000 miles less. Get a new one of those. This shit ain't going back in, fan that, the intake. And then these are the oil cooler lines. Those also are not going back in. Okay, we're starting to do some stuff right now. So I have more of it tore apart. This is power washed. And then I carb cleaned it all. It's 100% cleaner than it was, but this is the worst casting I've ever seen. The rag just kept getting caught on all these nibs. But it's pretty clean. This is lined up pretty well, but you can see how much that chain is stretched. Cam plate's off. You can see this is raised. It's not very pronounced, but that's definitely worn. I bet you some of my oil pressure issues are due to that. Oil pump's off. I really need to get this all cleaned off. I don't know how I'm going to do it. I think I'm going to put it together, and then where I park my tractor trailer, they have a steam cleaner. I'm going to see if I can throw them a couple bucks and maybe have them hoisted up with the tow truck and then power wash all this. But I set this to top dead center, so now I need to clean all this and this mating flange all around it. I have a dipstick now. It's incredible. I had to hammer the absolute crap out of this and heat it with a torch. You can see I had it packed full of high temp RTV, so it didn't leak anymore. So we'll just save that for a souvenir for later. But I have a dipstick, so that's a win. Oil pump's coming off. Got to put a seal in here. This is all clean. I'm gonna hose the inside of that out with some brake clean. New oil pump. This is the bracket that holds that guy on. Wow, that O-ring, I didn't even touch that. It's so flat. It's not even round anymore. That's not good. I don't remember how this goes. I think I have to cut that off of there. Not sure. I started rushing through everything because it was gonna rain. So it's raining today, but not that bad. So I put the tent up. Right now I have everything assembled. I put the oil pump in, obviously pickup tube, oil pan, then set the front cover on. I have an installed tool to shove the balancer on, bolts on tight. I have this intake on, the rad's in, electric fans. You can just see how much more room there is. I got a new idler and greased it. The idler arm, the threads kind of stripped out when I went to pull it apart, and I didn't trust it anymore, so that's not going to stick around. I filled up the coolant system. The truck started and ran. First I pulled the fuel pump relay and cranked it for about 2 minutes, 30 seconds. Wait a little bit so don't overheat the starter, and put it all back together. Truck started right up. Makes about 50 to 60 oil psi of oil pressure. So now I was just under the truck for the last hour or so. Shoved the CV axles back in. I had to disconnect the shocks to get them in and out. Old diff's there. It was a pain in the ass to get the new diff in. I had to have the old lady pumping the jack. Wow, I bench pressed it in a little bit and set the bolts. Sidebar, editing the video. Just wanted to shout out to my girlfriend for pumping the jack. I left a part out. I was jacking up the diff, and then I got the rear bolt in, and I was trying to shove it in there. She asked if I needed help, and it was late at night. It was probably like 9 or 10 or something like that. And I'm like, yeah, if you could just work the jack. So I put my feet up on the plow mount, and I had the diff on my belly with one bolt in there, and I rolled it forward, and she was repositioning the jack to jack it up there a little bit, so then I can I was pushing on it and trying to shove the other bolt in there, and had my back like arched off the ground and my feet up on the plow frame, and I farted right in her face. She didn't say a single word, and she just kept working. She didn't laugh. She just kept doing it. Got the bolt in there, started the other two on the long side, and then I'm like, my bad. And she started laughing then, and she's like, yeah, it's no big deal. But it did stink a little bit. I'm like, yeah, no, I'm all the way down here too. As I'm laying on the gravel in the driveway. So just quick, thank you, you're cool. And she's helped me since then, so that wasn't the end of that, and she stuck around. So these were my delete cups from another set of axles I had from a job I did. So I made it two-wheel drive for a while, so it wasn't spinning the flanges on the stub shafts, because that's what was, the bearings were going bad here, everything's leaking. This entire thing's just a ball of grease. Here's all the parts that are not going back on: the intake, fan shroud, clutch fan, water pump. I figured instead of cleaning all this up and it had overheating issues, just get a new water pump. That's the idler, and then the thermostat's over there. I pulled that out because I need the bolts for the thermostat housing. Then I refilled the Diff, drained and refilled it. I power washed that oil pan, but now there's this crusty stuff on there, so I need to bring these to my house and pressure wash the entire underneath the truck. Everything is just caked on with grease everywhere. If you look from up here, that is an entire greasy mess. The box, I just wanted to look decent in here, because when I did the valve covers, I took my time and I cleaned everything up to make it look decent. I just don't know why everything's so greasy besides the diff leaking. I have the dipstick, I never lost oil, so I'm just guessing the diff just slung all that grease over the years and made a terrible mess, because I don't lose power steering fluid either, so there's nothing else it could be. Coolant would have just burnt off. So now I'm going to work on this sub harness. Plugs into the fans, which you zoomed in, and then 2 pins go into the computer here. I have to pull this cover off, and then power goes here, and then I just need to find a place to put the grounds. So basically it'll go into the truck sort of like this somehow. That'll be one fan, power, computer, ground, and ground. I don't know where I'm going to put the grounds yet, but they'll be somewhere. And then I gotta hook into the computer with my laptop. I bought a new laptop, so I have HP tuners downloading on that. My other laptop took a shit yesterday, so I just went to the store and got another one, and just gotta re-download everything. And I wish I had some of my pre-saved tunes and stuff on there that would have helped me out, but it is what it is. I had to rob some of these hose clamps off of a truck out back. The hose clamps that came with this kit were absolute shit. I'm losing everything, the wind's blowing. And then this filter doesn't really fit in there, but it would look better if it was bigger. But I'd rather run that Spectra filter than the piece of shit that came with it. That thing is just garbage. Well, if you're asking me, do I recommend this kit? No, find a different one. These pins are way too fat to fit in the computer. These wires are pins I saved from depinning another harness. So white is obviously going to go to white, and then green will go to this one. These are factory ones, and guess what? They slipped in there perfect. These, not even close. Almost an hour of struggling and they still won't work. And that one broke. You can see that's what it looks like. That's what it's supposed to look like. But you can see this part here is wider than down there. And I tried pinching it. There's nothing you can do about it. Find a different kit. Depin something on the junkyard. Your only options. I still don't know where the hell this ground is supposed to go. It doesn't reach. It doesn't even reach over here. It reaches the steering box. That's not a ground. I don't know. I'm driving home now. This thing idles about 50 psi of oil pressure, and I'm just cruising. It's doing good. So I just gotta watch the temperature gauge because I don't have fans, but getting a little hot right now. On my short drive is not that big of a deal because the thermostat will open, it'll burp, and I have a little extra coolant in the back to top it off. But I'm gonna go home, grab my laptop, and try and get these fans to work at a factory setting. Let me see if I can show you this. That thing went away. I wrote a tune to the vehicle. These are the settings that I just blindly threw in and then just wrote it to the vehicle. I have the first fan come on 215, off at 210, and then 210's right in the middle of the dash, so I figured that'd be a good run. And then second fan stage comes on 220, off at 210, and then I set the time, minimum time for them to run 50 seconds. And then AC pressures. I'm going to try and find a better numbers to go off of. I've downloaded 2 tunes and they didn't have any of this in there, so I downloaded them off of a newer vehicle, so I don't know. So I'm going to try and see if I can find better settings. If not, these are what I'm going to stick with. But right now, obviously it's late. That's wrote to the vehicle, so now I could drive it and they should work. I'm just going to probably run it and test it. See if they come on. Okay, so I left the editor and went to the VCM scanner for HP tuners, and then I went to vehicle controls and special functions, systems, fans, fan 1. It's on. It's hard to hear. They're very quiet. They're spinning. If you can listen. I can hear them. They're on. Nice and humming. So they appear to be working. Okay, I'm back the next day. I just wrote another tune to the vehicle. So I did new updated settings. I made this 30 miles an hour. I made this a little bit lower. I don't know what happened there. Video closed out. But I changed this. I found a tune for 05 1500 that had fans. And the one thing I found that should probably change under engine, idle, airflow is this cooling fan airflow. This is for the injectors. This was both zeroed out, so when fan 1 and 2 are on, it adds a little bit more fuel. And when I had both fans on, the idle dipped really low and it was stressing out the alternator. It was way under 14 volts. So but when I put my foot a little bit on the pedal, it would pick up to 14 volts. So we're gonna see if that fixes it with both fans on. The pressure's nice and up. Voltage up. So let's go to scanner. We'll connect. Go to vehicle controls. System fans. Fan is on. Fan 1 is on. I'm going to click fan 2. Oh yeah. Quick voltage drop. And it came right back up. Do that again. So I turned fan 2 off, fan 1 still on. Or turn fan 2 on again. And it corrects it. There, it's nice. Before it would just dip from a power draw and stay down. Alright. Fan 1's still on, fan 1's off now. I'm gonna go strictly fan 2. Not as bad. Well, that's working. It's the final update after doing all that work to it. It looks better in here, so much more room. This is just eBay intake, but this is a advanced auto filter. Look at that, it's loose. I gotta adjust that now. Good thing I saw that. But the fan's on, everything's working good. I do have a slight oil leak somewhere. I think it's coming from the oil pressure sensor, so I'm gonna address that. The truck's running cool with the settings I put into the computer, so that's good. Okay, that's tight once again. It's been like 700 miles I put on this so far, so it's pretty good. This fan kit's stayed working so far. I don't love it. I'd order that from like a different one, not the Michigan Motorsport one, get a better one. I ordered the PCM of North Carolina fan, so I would just get the controller from them. It's a lot more money, but it'll be worth it. So that's done. On to the next project.